I don't know where that's framed on me. I'm going to look over here awkwardly and say, hello, internet friends. This is part 2 of Final Boss TV, episode number 173. I'm sitting down with Marc Messenger, who, from this video alone, we're talking about Lost Honor, who you're the director of. But what else have you directed at Blizzard so far?
Well, I primarily World of Warcraft. I started back with Cataclysm.
Okay.
And mostly been doing the intros for that ever since. I also took a little...
Started with Deathwing to destroy everything.
That was my first movie at Blizzard.
Okay.
Was destroying, yes.
Everything.
Yes. Uh-huh. And, yeah, all the way through Mists and Warlords and Legion. And I took a little detour with Diablo Reaper of Souls. Did the intro for that as well.
Ooh. Okay.
That was fun.
All the
That was
Malthael
nice.
stuff, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, but primarily I'm a WoW guy.
Okay. That's the same thing, I think, and the part 3 of this, I'll be talking to Taryn, and he's dabbled a little bit, like he did that Junker City one for Overwatch.
Yeah.
Still machinima, though. So still that like,
Super cool.
in-game cinema. Oh, it was really funny. Absolutely. It was great. So it's neat to see that you guys in the whole cinematics crew now apart, and you don't always stick to one game. You can move around a little bit.
Yeah,
Is
there's
there
a little bit of that.
Is there a franchise within Blizzard yet you haven't directed a piece for that you want to direct a piece for?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, definitely Overwatch.
Okay, there it is.
I've yet to touch Overwatch beyond being just an amazing, I'm just like a total fan.
No, okay.
So
I watched Reunion again
someday,
as well.
perhaps.
Yeah.
I hope.
Reunion hit, it's like 2 million views before I even came in today or something like that. Like
I love it.
Overwatch fans eat that up.
It's so good.
Absolutely.
It's so good.
Well, actually, we're talking stats now. I'm curious. I think, we're about to hit 1 million before BlizzCon even ends on Lost Honor. So, but as I've done with before, and those listening right now, this is a terrible way to watch this. So go watch Lost Honor yourself, and then come back to us because we're going to talk about this and pause and start and stop. And I'm going to zoom in on things, and you're not going to be able to really see this camera. Hi, you can see what we're talking about, but again, if you want to pull up another window and watch it with us, and we'll start and stop and go over that, because don't think it's going to be like 40 minutes. It's going to be nonsense. But, so, before we start this, though, if you want to give me your whole, your title then? What's your whole little tagline for Blizzard?
Well, I'm a project director with story and franchise development. So,
Okay.
And that basically means I direct cinematics.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, for clarification, there are multiple different tiers of cinematics you have at Blizzard now. So, do you want to break down all the different ones? So if we used acronyms or terminology, we're not confusing anybody.
Sure. So I work on what we have traditionally called the pre-rendered movies. That name doesn't really mean so much anymore because pre-rendered is a distinction between that and something that's running off a game engine.
Sure.
And pretty much much of what we do now is pre-rendered. But I work on what you'd think of as the high-fidelity intros, kind of content.
Yeah.
We also have the in-game cutscenes that Taryn works on, right? And so you have that distinct flavor of media. And then we have the 2.5D movies like the Harbingers or the Warbringers, where we basically bring paintings to life.
Yeah.
So,
moving art.
Yeah. So those are the 3 flavors that we deal with in World of Warcraft.
That's the one thing I hope that permeates, because the pre-render, when Taryn talked to me about this all the years ago when I talked to him, and the terminology makes sense because it's from a game engine to outside of it. But to me, as a film nerd too, they're not pre-rendered because they are rendered. So that was curious. So yeah, the hyper-realistic just cinematics to in-game cinematics. And then Taryn has one step too that I think they're the real-time cinematics, the ones with the actual just game engine stuff.
Yes, that as well. That as well.
But I'll go over that with him later. But this, Lost Honor, I think the first thing as this opens here is those are all individual pieces on the playing field, right? All those little soldiers. They're probably all almost the same. I imagine. I don't know how many duplicates you made or how many variations. But because I want to open on this huge shot of Stormwind Harbor, can you give us a better timeline of how long a 3-minute cinematic would take from concept and start to launch yesterday?
Yeah, most of these high fidelity shorts that we do for WoW, whether it's an intro or this new kind of content, where it's not just connected to the intro, They usually take between 11 and 12 months, somewhere in there. You know, from very start to finish. You know, from the just initial, like we're just talking about the idea, we're just starting to write the script, maybe doing a few storyboards, all the way to when we deliver the final frames. You know, usually it's somewhere around a year.
Okay.
Part of that is actually because we have a lot, you know, our department, the Blizzard Animation Department, you know, basically provides all the movies for all the games.
Yes.
You know, and so it's a good sized crew, but by animation studio standards, it's not a humongous crew. It's not giant, right? So so sometimes, you know, in fact, with Battle for Azeroth, we actually put that movie to bed for a little while at one point because we had some other movies that really needed people to pile on and get done to meet a certain schedule.
Maybe
right?
Overwatch shorts, I would imagine, maybe, because those were coming. They've had 4 so far this year already. Those aren't small feats. So,
and the nice thing is that, you know, then we're able to just, you know, restart on the WoW project, because the WoW window is larger than some of the other windows, you know, for the different games, you know,
a little more time
between expansions.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I think Ian has hit the cadence now for World of Warcraft as it sits, because we had the long time with Mist of Pandaria, Cataclysm, those kind of games, and then they tried to revamp it with Warlords. Didn't really work out that well. They tried to go faster, couldn't do it, and then with Legion into BFA now, I think this 2-year cadence.
Yeah,
That really feels like there's enough time for you guys to nail it all down. Like the 3 major patches, 3 small patches, and then like 6 months of beta.
But now we're filling it up with more stuff.
Well, right now, exactly. So open up some more time, and then just there's time there. So that's the one thing that also is interesting too. A year to make this from start to stop, but aren't only working on one at a time. So if you could put it into that in perspective, then how many other projects were being tick boxed and pipelined with Lost Honor on like one stream?
Well, I'd have to, you know, tax my memory, but Battle for Azeroth, we were in production on that when we began working on Old Soldier.
At the same time.
Yes.
Wow.
So there was an overlap. We were in lighting on Battle for Azeroth when we started iterating on the story for Old Soldier. Lost Honor, I think, came again when we were kind of about halfway through working on Old Soldier. We started talking about Lost Honor.
Your panel yesterday, you almost sounded like it was a part of the crew came to you guys that, you know, let's do another one. And you weren't expecting it at all. Just kind of like as an extra.
That was the.
We weren't expecting this at all yesterday.
Yeah, that was the ignition of it. Was the game team coming to us and saying, you know, for this expansion, we want to do more of this kind of high fidelity content.
It's so good.
So yeah, super exciting.
Yeah.
You know, we love providing this stuff for the game team, and you know, the more we can do, the more we want to do. You know?
That obviously the question you can't answer now is because we've gotten the intro, and we've gotten Old Soldier, and we've gotten Lost Honor. We have one of the largest characters in the mythos coming up soon with Queen Ajara, who's been teased for probably 2 expansions in a row, like 4 years.
Yeah.
We've known she was coming. A little bit here, a little bit there. Is there any? We getting more of these again?
I don't know.
that's
Who can say?
Yeah.
Right?
Because I mean, I rib Terran all this all the time, and that'll be in the part 3 of this too, because he's like 6 months ahead already right now, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's how films work. For those that don't understand how the film works, when you finally see like a big AAA blockbuster film, those were done like a year ago. And when the media and the actors and all those people come back on, that's a junket they've already kind of washed their hands of. Then they get right back into it again because of all the post time and everything else that goes with it. So the same kind of thing happens with these. So how long ago was like all these projects then? Like Old Soldier in the BFA cinematic? Like how far ahead do you think you get before the community sees them?
Well, in terms of when we get to the finishing line, it's usually not that long before the community sees them.
Okay.
Because, you know, like I said, we're a smaller group, and we really have to, you know, work pretty hard to get these things done. And we have a lot of content that's constantly being pushed through the pipe, you know. So, you know, I think in the case of Old Soldier, we had maybe finished it a month before we released it at China Joy.
That's so much closer than I thought. Yeah. That's a close window. Dang.
Yeah. and that's putting, that's wrapping up, finishing the post-production, the sound design, the color correction,
the sweetness,
all the sweetening. Yeah, exactly. And then of course localization, getting it ready to go out to the world in all those different languages. That blows my mind.
You said on your panel yesterday there's like 14 languages or 13. These all get
something like that. Over 10, I think. And just really amazing. I mean, before I went to China Joy for the launch of Old Soldier there, I got to hear it in the Chinese version in Mandarin, and it sounded awesome. It was fantastic.
And that's just not to clarify. Not all of them are just subtitled, but they're actually re-voice acted.
They're re-voice act, each region. I think I'm correct in this. Each region has a voice director that handles that.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it's very complicated to translate something into another language. It's not just, we've all tried Google Translate for fun, and we know how well that works sometimes, right? You have to actually not just, you have to translate the lines, and then you sort of have to reinterpret the lines, because there are certain concepts that don't cross from one culture to another.
Yeah, slang, terminology, intent, like how they say their words in what order.
Yeah. So it's a big job, and my hat's off to them.
Yeah, that's all because of this shot. That's how this shot sort of exemplifies how many people it takes to make projects like this. So, and I know that coming from my background. Everyone has a hat. Everyone has to do their job, and you can't make something this big without everyone involved. How big is the team now?
I don't know the exact number, but I think, usually you can count on about 90 people in Blizzard Animation working on one project.
Oh, wow.
And that same group will peel off at different times, as we run something through the pipe, like as animation gets finished with this, they would move on to another show, whatever's the next thing on tap, and this show would move on to lighting. And so we try to keep the shows flowing through the different departments.
Well, because you guys had Lost Honor, you have Terror of Darkshore, you had the new Diablo Immortals, you had the Ophia trailer as well, and that's just like the pretty stuff, right? Because then the Heroes team still had their Heroes Breakdown trailer,
which is also very
Spotlight.
cool.
And then the Overwatch, I didn't know until I went home, there's also the Origins of Ash 2.5D.
Yeah.
All like one time, and those are all working on the same 90-ish or so people, you said, right?
Well, it varies. Like for example, the Ash origin piece is 2.5D.
Yeah.
So actually, those paintings are done by artists in our concept department.
Oh, okay, different little.
Which it's also part of story and franchise development, but. Blizzard Animation is sort of one part of that puzzle, and the concept department is sort of another part. They're part of what we call creative development, which is what I'm part of, is creative development. So there's just a couple of different entities within story and franchise development.
And it's still, even if it might sound like a large amount of people, you're opening a little bit about how, like, say, an actual, like a Pixar, they have hundreds. Then it'll be so different, because each of those animators for those big pieces, I had a friend of mine that actually was an animator on Tron, the new one, and I think he only worked on like 13 shots out of the whole film.
Yeah.
That's all he did. And obviously there's thousands.
Sure.
And that's all the shots he did, 13. That was his job. And to put that in perspective on how you can take those huge AAA blockbusters and you guys still do... we're going to watch through this, because I think the thing I wanted to get into next is that obviously the community wants, when is the Warcraft movie coming out that's done by you guys? Because there was an Uncanny Valley bit I think that we crossed beyond, because the way that Anduin looks now and what you guys have created and how real, but not like, ooh, it's kind of weird looking, kind of like the Hobbit films in high frame rate. It gives you that.
I don't know exactly how that happened, to be honest with you. I mean, there's a little, there's a little bit of alchemy involved. You know?
Sure.
I mean, you have a lot of people firing on all cylinders, doing their very best work, but we're always talking about the Uncanny Valley with, certainly we went through that a lot with Varian. Yeah. Varian was a difficult character, to be honest with you, trying to balance him and make him, he was even a character that from different angles he would almost look like a different person depending on how you photographed him.
Oh gosh.
And so going into Anduin, we were very concerned about trying to up our game and to somehow cross the uncanny valley. And somehow, I don't know. I think it just comes down to he's so appealing.
Sure.
That you just stop worrying about.
I mean, we're talking about Anduin right now, and Greymane is out of focus in the background, right? He's racked out. It's not because he's the secondary character in the scene, but it's not even just the way it looks. And then we did zoom ins on these when I was sort of prepping for these interviews, and there's like waterline and gloss in his eye now, and you can see his pore structure.
Yeah.
And that's just super crazy, awesome new CGI technology that does that, and like even strands of hair that are all like moving in the simulation to make this work. And he has peach fuzz, and he has like different cracking points and little like wear on his lips, like natural human stuff. So it goes a little bit, because if he didn't have those, it'd be the uncanny valley.
Yeah,
he like looks kind of plastic.
But the funny thing is, other characters in CG world have had all of those things and have not succeeded. And so I think there's something about just the base concept of a character.
Right.
Is it just appealing to look at on a base level?
Sure.
Right. And I think part of it is that we started with a real person.
Yeah.
That our actor Jordi Horlabar, who played not the voice of Anduin.
Yes.
And Josh has played the voice for many years.
He's the body and the face.
But he is the body and the face that we used to begin our exploration of Anduin. And we did scans of his head so that we could then sculpt over that and stylize it a little bit to bring it more into the CG world, into the Warcraft universe world. But I think that helped a lot to just start with a real person, you know. And then we also benefit from the fact that, unlike some movies where they try to recreate a known actor as a CG,
like the Carrie Fisher in the new Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, with it's like the ultimate challenge, right?
Yeah.
To totally fool you into believe that you're looking at somebody that intimately already. Fortunately, we didn't have to deal with that. We didn't have to climb that mountain. Nobody knew what Anduin would look like in pre-render in a high fidelity way.
I think that the bottom line in this, you can take this to the team internally, and I'm sure it's accoladed out for everyone else. But I mean, this is Industrial Light and Magic Weta level stuff that you guys are doing, because like this looks. I mean, obviously the whole realm of it is CGI, so it blends together more in the eye and our mental understanding of film. But I brought up the Carrie Fisher at the end of the new Star Wars because that was, as she was moving, fine. The frame when she talks about hope, universally, just like it was a little weird, but none of that ever like affected with this and this whole short and the previous ones. It's easier when it's like an orc and a troll, who's Zappy Boy and Saurfang, and obviously with Greymane, who's a big good boy. But when we have our human character like this, that is just, he's front and center, like he's on like a close-up frame, and it doesn't make anyone go, oh, that's weird. You just skipped all that.
Yeah.
And well, it's so good.
It's the hardest thing in the world to make a convincing human being.
The
hardest thing that you could attempt in CG. And my hat's off to anybody who makes the attempt and has, any sort of success with it. I think
this is incredible. He looks really good.
Well, thank you. On behalf of our whole team, thank you.
Because again, like that's why I put you out like the Weta and ILM, because and those are hundreds of people that have been doing this for so long, and you guys have this little, and this happens. So
that's the last of the soldiers. We'll be calling up farmers next.
What? Do you have a director of photography that you also work with when you shoot these, or is this all like a different process? Because like film would have a DP.
Yeah, it is. It is a slightly more collaborative process.
Okay.
We don't have what I'd call a single DP.
Okay.
But we have a number of people who are extremely talented in that vein.
Okay.
Usually it will be a collaboration between our art director. Historically, Blizzard art directors have been in our animation group have been very strong on lighting, on color, and
I have tons of little queens to bring up about that in a moment, but for this, there's so many points that I bring up that I always wonder if who controls what lens this is on, because
Yeah.
obviously you stage this in a 3D environment and you have
Again,
lenses for this kind of stuff.
It's very much a collaboration between, we have, our lighting department is excellent, right? And they know their stuff,
Obviously.
Our previous department is actually responsible for our cameras.
Okay.
And they're really good too. And they collaborate with the lighting department,
Right.
to choose our lenses, focal lengths and camera movement, all that kind of thing. So we sort of, it's not one DP, it's sort of several that all work together,
I wonder if that's honestly a strength that you've put through in how Blizzard makes everything they make, is because of that open collaborative process. And of course you can probably have some butt heads here and there, and you have some creative differences as the terminology goes, but in most big films you have one guy that has the vision and one guy that has the visual vision.
Yeah.
And that sometimes can have a really polarizing effect on what each of them want, or just how a film looks.
Yeah.
And I think because you have a team that works all those problems out, that's so much more of like a little think tank for lighting and cinematography. Putting it all on one person is incredible when they are an incredible cinematographer. Like the one you guys had, I can't remember his name, the guy that did Life of Pi for the Warcraft movie. That's one of the big things I always hail the Warcraft movie for, is just how the film looks.
Yeah.
Just how the film looks is incredible.
It's gorgeous.
Story had the problem that most of the fans had an issue with, but the film, you can't fault the film on how it looked. And that it's funny how I still draw the parallels to these huge films, and then your little shorts like this.
When this war began, I thought we were fighting.
How much of the boats were created? Is there nothing inside the boat? It's just the outside. Like, I don't know how much assets.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
Build.
There's not a lot inside the boat. The boat is actually very funny. That is actually the model that began in Cataclysm. Do you remember the shot where we were in Booty Bay and the tidal wave lifted the boat?
Shot? Yeah.
So we built a boat. We based it on the Maiden's Fancy, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And we only modeled it to be seen from a distance.
Sure, of course.
Then we needed a ship again.
Oh, okay.
I think for Miss Pandaria, we needed for the shot where
Ship
the
in the
two
back?
ships are fighting
at
the beginning.
Before the...
So we needed it again, and we didn't really have the time or the resources to model the whole boat. So we just modeled the part that you could see on film. So we up-res the back of the boat, basically.
Nice.
Then we needed it again for Legion, and so now we had to do the front of the ship. So by this point we finally have kind of a full ship,
boat.
That's been spread out over several movies.
That's really funny.
But yeah, I don't believe there's anything inside the model. I think it's just all a shell.
It's just the movie tricks and stuff like that, because those are cheats, and we use that terminology not as a derogatory term, but you don't need to do the whole thing. Don't need to do it.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I don't even know. Are you familiar with the? You probably have to be with the CGI program Massive that makes all the little dupes. And it's come a long way. Did you use any of that for all the soldiers in these shots, or are they all just hand plopped?
Yes, we have a really good layout department.
Okay,
they're a very small group, but they work very hard and they're very talented. And what we do is we create animation cycles for things like idles of soldiers just standing or shifting their weight or walking. And then our layout department will go in and actually place characters, and we'll just sort of art direct it. The art director and I will get
setting
together
a stage
and just kind of move the pieces around. We do have I believe, a program that's somewhat like Massive. I'm not super familiar with it.
Okay.
But we, on this particular piece, it was all just straight hand-keyed layout.
That's so ridiculous. I mean, they're like mostly still shots with
since they're standing around, yeah.
But it's still making a huge vista shot like that. It's like the Helm's Deep or the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Those are just so many actors, CGI actors, but still actors.
Yeah.
So I was wondering about that when you get to these huge shots.
Your Majesty.
This is the shot with the water line that I was going to talk about before, is that there are so many layers in Anduin's eyes that you could probably literally do a documentary within your team about just how eyes work. Because there's a lot of this in Old Soldier as well, and I geeked out about that on the Old Soldier cinematic nerd out that, is why I'm sitting here talking to you today, that directors and what you guys want to tell is that you don't have to always have anyone say anything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in Old Soldier where there's just no dialogue at all. It's just noise. It's just sound, and it's just where the characters look. And that is next up in this, too. And people can understand emotion in certain things, like the fright furrow right before the scene cuts because he's thinking about something.
Yep.
Right? And at the time when you're watching this at the first, you don't know what he's thinking about.
Yeah.
What's Anduin going to do?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the murmur in the community was that, is Anduin the bad guy? Is he old god corrupted or whatever? And all these little notices.
If you go back to that real quick, another thing I'd like to point out that's kind of fun is that we did talk about the idea of Anduin being half in shadow when he's standing watching all the...
It's a little bit, but yeah.
There's sort of a moving leaves shadow that goes over him, but he's kind of hot under here, even more so in the other shot. And,
I'll bring that up.
But what we were playing with was the idea that, Anduin really is kind of a creature of the light, literally. I mean, that's his thing. He's a priest. But he's conflicted.
Right.
That he's actually partly in darkness here. That was something we talked about trying to visually show how Anduin was torn.
His armor in the background have that a bit, because you have the key light that's hitting his face and his chin here, and his armor and this even backdrop is all light. And if you look, if you cut off the screen, there definitely is a huge difference in the tone. It's a bit more gradient because it's naturally lit, but there is points. That's a subtle part because it gets way less subtle in a little bit.
Yes.
So you're talking about the light and dark walkthrough. We fade in from darkness, and Anduin is in darkness, and he walks through his moment here, the shine down. Even the shine is broken, right? With the ambient light and the dry ice effect going on there, the fog coming into the stockades, and then back into darkness again. We talked about this the day when I first met you, and I used to do this at the house of the day. I asked him to turn the TV up and then replay this scene and just listen. I would love to pick the sound designer's mind, because just in this, I don't even know, 20 frames, I want to see his sound breakdown of how many pieces are to make the leather crunch and the sting of touching the metal, and the armor clinked a little bit, and his feet rustles, and the reaction of him putting pressure on the door, just barely.
It's really good.
It's just in this moment, too. But that is just to break the sound. I like how, when I first watched it, you're not supposed to see Saurfang. You led your eye away with the light into this, into that. But that was really, really neat. And then, of course, the movement, when he shuffles, is what draws your eye.
Awesome. I'm glad it worked.
But, yeah, it led your eye away, for sure. Because his eye is moving, and it leads your eye down and then across. So you led with the character and then the camera angle, and and what's in the shot, stuff like that geeks me out. I like what's interesting in this one too. This whole sequence has a ton of back and forth lighting, and I gotta probably move a little ahead because we've geeked out way too hard. There's less light behind Anduin than Saurfang. And these are I'm not talking out of my ass here. These are conscious decisions to play the characters a little bit, right? How they're all put together.
Sure, and a lot of it is about composition, about popping a character out from the background so you can have a recognizable silhouette, that kind of thing.
This is very Old Soldier. It's just flipped on where the light's coming from. Old Soldier, who was lit on the right side from the brazier, and this side is, of course, lit on the left. But, and again, going back, I don't want to harp on this anymore because it's just so ridiculous. I mean, Saurfang looks as good as the Warcraft movie. Look at him. I actually gave a lot of praise to the Warcraft movie by saying the orc characters are the best part of the entire film. And I was kind of sad that Man-Made Moon, he had to cut out some of the BTS stuff that was extra orc interactions, because that stuff was so good.
Oh, loved it.
Like the
Love
campfire scene with Drekthar and them just talking about like why they're green and the joke about green-skinned orcs.
Yeah, but you're green.
Yeah,
You know,
it was really
they
good with
laugh.
him and
It's
Doomhammer.
great.
Yeah, but they had
Or Thrall throwing a rock at Orgrim's head.
Orgrim's head. There was little, and they weren't really long clips. They just had to move it for time and pacing and whatever.
Yeah.
So, but Duncan, I mean, he had a lot to juggle. So, but I mean, these orcs
Maybe even end the war.
look as good as the stuff from the film.
Well, that's why I got excited about the idea of doing something with Saurfang, because again, I was seeing him in lighting.
Yeah.
And you know, when a character's finally there in lighting and turntables, and you start to see them act in the shots,
Right.
you know, up until that point, you don't really understand just what kind of impact they're going to have.
Right.
And that was when I really started to realize, oh, this character is fantastic. These people have made something special,
Oh, yeah, and
and we
Saurfang,
should try to do more with him.
Just kind of a quest giver stood around. He stood in the Siege of Orgrimmar and was, you know, just kind of there. And it was interesting that character gets plucked up to be this antithesis, this like other anti-hero if you're in the Horde against Sylvanas, and it's been a really wild ride watching him sort of evolve and change. But I definitely want to just let this scene play. And again, if you're watching, watch this scene alone. I think I get to give Terran crap for this because he does the same kind of moments in a couple of the in-game cinematics recently. The one with Illidan walking down the stairs talking to Velen, and there's something incredibly subtle. And part of what I opened with is that I can't even explain within the next like 15 minutes how many emotions are happening in this scene where nothing is happening. All Anduin's doing from the outside in is opening the door. But there is this moment of like realization, determination he's going to go in. He never like loses eyes. He locks eyes back, and he's locked the entire time with both characters. Obviously notices to walk into the portcullis, and he closes the door behind him.
Why didn't you kill me?
Just first off, my king, because I play Alliance. My king. But
He's entered the tiger cage.
basically, I mean, he's in the cage with Rorschach.
Yeah.
He's locked in there with him. I mean, and he's doing it by himself. He did this on purpose.
Yeah.
So
Could kill you now.
I also love really simple dialogue, because sometimes obviously movies have tons and tons of dialogue. That's how movies work. But really clean dialogue, and this is the first time the two of them have talked since the battle.
Yeah.
And we don't really have like a timeline of how much time has passed here. And obviously Saurfang sort of gave himself up, right? So timeline wise, it's still really fun. That's the tiger getting angry, or at least showing
I
his
spared
strength.
you
Yep.
because I believed you have honor.
You did the same thing in Old Soldier when Honor was brought up with Zappy Boy, like the down look. I'm not remembering the brain theory. If looking down to the right, like, is that a conscious decision of where their eyes look, or is it based on the framing of the character?
I can't remember. Full disclosure,
Sure.
I acted video for this shot.
I saw it on the panel.
and
It's
so
good.
I just felt it and did whatever I felt
Sure.
in that moment.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, so I don't know what was going on there. I just kind of tried to be Saurfang for a moment.
I would have to go back and watch Old Soldier, but the one thing that I thought when I was looking at this too, and I didn't know if you were drawing a parallel at all, is this is the first shoulder he took off in Old Soldier. He took off his right one first.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when he just lets down
Yep.
with a clunk, because he throws his left one at Zakan, or
Right.
he makes a move with it. Doesn't throw it at Zappy Boy, but he looked at that shoulder first, and that's
Right.
sort of where that movement of no pauldrons for Saurfang or no pauldrons off for Saurfang, all that stuff.
Sure.
So he looks that way. I just didn't know if that was the same.
Was I wrong?
Some of the stuff
Do you
that we
want
do
more
is
innocence to
instinctual
suffer?
and unconscious.
Sure.
It's just like based on everything that we've already built. So who knows where we draw from
Just
sometimes.
look at the metal casing, and this is on my monitor on the resolution here, and it's only 1080p, and oh my goodness. That brings me to frame rate. I didn't ask that earlier. What frame rate are you guys actually kicking these out in?
I think we're at 30.
This is at 30?
Pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure.
I would love to see these rendered out in a 24. I don't even imagine how just film that would look. I wonder if those are ever a thing you would ever render out. The rendering in the computer would just drop frames. I don't know if it would actually work if you didn't structure it to be 24, but that would be really fun to watch, to see what that was like in 24 frames.
Yeah, I'd have to ask, actually.
But you're modeling crew and just all the, because you have to, obviously when you're doing a close-up like this, you're basically doing a bigature, like Lord of the Rings style. And the bigatures have to be so detailed to be blown up in those huge shots.
Oh, yeah.
And all the wear and tear on how old Saurfang is just ridiculous.
Yeah, the surfacing guys did a wonderful job.
Given everything for the Horde. Ride for it. Kill for it.
I like the light. Obviously, you have to have the same light and the same source, but it's on the dialogue on when.
Given everything for the Horde. Ride for it. Kill for it.
It just feels interesting when the killed for it is the part that brings like the light back, which is like a back and forth on his character.
And Sylvanas is destroying it.
We really like the idea of having this pool of light that separated the two characters.
Yeah, for sure.
Like almost like a force field that Saurfang has to plow through to get to Anduin,
and he walks right through it into my king. I like the idea that you guys went with to play his character. I don't even know who from the story development team from like World of Warcraft would come over to like supervise what a character would be or his motivations would be or how he would work, but he never ever flinches in this entire scene.
Everything.
He
Well, that was
locks eye.
definitely-
I would be scared. He's like a 9-foot tall orc.
Well, that was definitely our instinct. I mean, we talk with Alex Afrasiabi and Steve all the time, and so we have a good sense of what they want for these characters. But we also really just wanted Anduin to just stay strong in this moment.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the one thing that we did kind of add, you can see that his chest is going up and down, that he's standing there looking as defiant and unafraid as possible, but you can see he's actually got an elevated heart rate. He's breathing a little bit hard.
Destroying it.
Oh, you can see you could see his.
It's just a subtle thing.
Just that little
but
bit.
without it, you had nothing. Without it, he was a statue, and that
You can see
added
it in
a
this
little-
frame. Watch his shoulder pads too.
destroying
Yeah, his shoulder pad starts.
Destroy everything. What I want.
Also, note, Saurfang could break out of stockades if he wanted
Absolutely.
to. Like he could just.
He
leave.
could have hit him in the head,
Also true.
which begs the question: why didn't he?
Yeah, he didn't. That's also.
Which we excavate a little further.
Yeah, and again, a little bit with the light play. That's one of the big things I always look at too. Is that the scene transitions from Saurfang's dialogue and his moment here, but you lead the eye with the punch, and the thing that's key lit, is Anduin's reaction. And he knocks, like the shockwave. I would love to watch this like super slow motion, because you animate this shockwave into him. The force of the pressure of Saurfang just pushes him back, just ever so slightly.
It would push me
But
back.
he didn't flinch, it pushes him back.
Yeah.
Like, clearly.
Yeah.
Is my horde.
The compassion in this shot, in Anduin's, I don't know, how do you animate compassion without saying anything? Just the way his eyes and his brow, and how to capture that turn.
A lot of it, again, is doing a lot of video reference.
Right.
Acting it over and over again. And then our animators are extremely skilled at being able to go in and look at a piece of video and just dissect it down to, what is this muscle doing right now? What is this muscle doing? I can't do it. It's amazing.
Tell me why you spared my life.
I almost wonder,
You spared my life.
like, it's natural when you make eye contact with someone, like, you eventually, your brain wants you move your eyes away, right? You're a little bit like that. But this,
Tell me why you spared my life.
he's looking at his armor. Like, it looks like from, like, because where he's looking at here, he looks at his armor,
Tell me
right?
why you spared my life.
There was a little extra movement
why
that we
you spared
felt
my
we
life.
needed to put in.
Tell me why.
You
He
know, we
wasn't just
wanted
staring a little bit.
Yeah,
but
we wanted to capture a feeling of, Anduin is in a heightened emotional state.
Of course.
I mean, he's being incredibly
Spared my
brave
life.
in this moment, right?
Yeah.
But he's also asking really hard questions of someone who could kill him, like
And owes
that
him
right
nothing.
now, and owes him nothing.
I wonder what the
you know?
power struggle with that would be if Saurfang, because again, like, cinematically storytelling, power levels of characters in these fantasy games are a little different versus like the in-game. Because I don't know, I actually would wonder. Maybe someone in the comments on this YouTube video could let me know, like, what kind of Saurfang versus Anduin, light bearer versus just old veteran orc, like raw sheer orc power. I don't know who would win in like a duel.
It's a great question.
No idea. Like, it's not something we can really answer. But there is so much that happens in his
Me
moment.
why you spared my life.
Because Anduin is still, like, he's stern, he's focused, he is ready to go. Like, there's nothing, like, with his expression that is doing this. But this 3 or 4 seconds, when his brow comes up and his nose flares and he...
You. Let's stop her.
It's, I don't know.
Well, this has got to be like the hardest admission for him.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
To say that, you know, when all is said and done, I don't believe that I can stop Sylvanas alone.
Oh,
and I was hoping
right.
that this kid would do it for me.
Right.
That's nuts for him to say that,
And but
right?
literally, Anduin is essentially admitting the same thing to Saurfang.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we open with a shot of seeing how many soldiers that are left. That's like it. That's all. That's all the army. That's all we have left.
Exactly. They're in this moment. They're kind of mirrors
Right.
of each other.
Right, in the same place, exactly. Which is also kind of funny because there's stats on like Wowpedia, right, about how many people historically like Saurfang is like 1v-x'd, right, like Broxigar style madness. Yeah. So it's almost like that Saurfang is in Anduin's eyes that piece that he feels is as strong as the rest of his army that he has left. That's how powerful Saurfang would be in this place. The inhale. There, really subtle inhale, but that's a really huge tell in moments of realization that they're the same person basically in this.
I can't.
And then they both admit something to each other.
I can't.
These are the 2 shots that really kill me. That in all this time when Anduin is in and this is back on light play, in this cell, in the tiger cage, outside of like the one key that comes in just for his reaction after the punch, Saurfang stands up into a lighted frame first. A really, really brightly lit frame, and it's a bounce frame. It's that pillar of light, that force field you talked about earlier.
And we were really going for a correct exposure on this. So that in order to see enough of Saurfang, that means this blows out.
Has to be,
right?
Yeah. I mean, there's no information there
Yeah.
in actual. That's totally done, right? You can't pull that down. There's nothing there, but that's absolutely true. And then you cut back over, and I geeked out about this when I was doing these and studying them again. Anduin gets silhouetted in light like a priest because of his hair.
Yeah.
Like these are conscious where the character moves because obviously he has to account for the door and the physical space, but it's still the bouncing back and forth of the light. And this is the first time you see a lot more of just Anduin standing here in his like regalia. Obviously we have the lion and symbol, so it ties him back to his dad.
And again, there's still mirrors.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. The one part too is these little details just because of his orientation, but the actual insignia of Varian that he has now, this is his belt buckle, I suppose, or something similar.
Yeah.
Varian had it on his belt buckle.
Yeah, it's
now it's
the
Anduin's
big
chest plate.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's also
Not alone.
half. You only ever see half of it. And then Anduin walks out away from the frame. That the fact that you guys made his jaw drop just a little bit for an orc to do that, to a human boy essentially, who has lived no lives compared to Saurfang. It's just that lip right there, and the exhale, and he slouches a little bit, and then of course he realizes the door's open.
What are you gonna do, Saurfang?
Sorry if Anduin leaves the door open. I think that you have to find the right beat to leave that shot too. But it's just a tension that builds right there. Gosh, there's so many little things. That's why simple dialogue and like not even needing to say anything. Because a lot of films like they tell you the plot and the characters talk the story and they have to like tell their motivations. But that's why, again, going back to what I said before about how much you've rolled into not needing to say anything.
Well, and Saurfang is a man of few words generally, you know.
Yeah.
So it fits with him.
There's so many little things here too. Man, it's just really, really well put together. And there's only so many shots in this whole piece because you have moving shots. That's still one shot, right? So, no, with this, when I saw this on stage the first time, this is the shot that struck me the most. There's so much happening there.
Oh, they just did a fantastic job with that shot.
There's so much happening in this shot. I just... And going from, like, if you watch Old Soldier to this, to see the change in the timeline and this expression and how you guys put that emotion together and how it's all put.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to mention actually on that note is that one of the great things we're getting to do is we're getting to use this character over and over again.
Yeah.
So we're getting to know him better.
Oh, yeah,
as
for sure.
a character, as a personality. The animators are also getting much more familiar with his rig.
Oh, for sure.
So he becomes easier to animate, and we have a deeper pool of people who are now experienced with animating Saurfang, and now we're starting to have that with Anduin as well.
Yeah.
So we're building this roster of characters that we can be even more facile with, and that we can hit the ground running when we start to work with them, which is great.
Have the motion capture folks that make the bodies met like the voices of their characters as well? Like have those paths crossed internally at all yet? Like they've made this together with you guys.
Yeah. For example, our voice actors, who provide the voices, we always bring a couple of our animators up with us to our recording stage, and because the animators want to capture video reference while they're there of the VO actors, recording the lines. And one of the other things that Ricardo Bariba, our animation supervisor, was mentioning to me was how much he loves being there to take notes when we are all just talking about the characters.
Oh, okay.
That to be a part of that and be a fly on a wall and be able to take all the notes of everything that Andrea Toyas and I and the actors all sit and talk about, because we'll do like table reads where we really talk about the characters and try to understand their motivations, and the animators say that is great information for them as well, so there's definitely points that we do that cross paths, and they'll look at that reference as they're animating the characters. They'll be poring over that reference, the video reference.
It still blows me away, and I hope that it comes across in this and in the next part of this when I sit down with Taryn that this gets done on a larger scale, movie size, with so many hundreds of more people than you guys do with what you have at Blizzard Entertainment, and it's come such a long way, even from when like cinematics started being a thing here and there, with like the Wrathgate, and then like the Ulduar opening trailer, just the little cinematics outside of like the big full blown CGIs we've had that are for the intros, which were always at the huge. They show off at BlizzCon. Oh gosh. But those don't really they have different story beats than this stuff you guys are doing now, that are this narratively focused, story-driven, short movies, short films. Which always begs the question, I think the one thing I can end on here is that, is it just not something that Blizzard can accomplish by themselves yet, which I think many people would dismiss. Why? I don't know. It's a huge different thing. Blizzard making their own movie, or making their own Warcraft film, or Overwatch film, or whatever. Because you can string together all the Overwatch shorts now and have a movie, almost, right?
Sure.
Basically. But is that just something that you guys can't get to that point yet to do, or is it just a huge different logistics, financial?
I would say, it's a complicated question, but I would say that our first responsibility is always to the games, right? And we have a lot of games to provide the best quality content that we possibly can. So that's always going to be the number one priority, is making sure that the games get the story love that they need, right? In all the mediums that we can provide it. Now, would we like to do something more? I think a lot of people would. I think it gets talked about a lot. We hear it constantly from the community. The community is always asking for that. It is a very challenging premise. I know, that it might seem like we have infinite resources, but there's no such thing, right? And and again, like I said, it's a fairly modest group of people that do all the work that we currently do, and they're all very busy. So, so for us to do it, I think it would just be about that its time had come. Like just with these movies, this is the first time historically that we've delivered more high fidelity content for a Warcraft expansion.
BFA, yep.
And It never happened before because of reasons. But here we are. Now we're doing it.
I like that.
You know?
I don't know what that means.
So, you know, I can't definitively answer the question except to say there's a lot of passion for making this kind of content, and we'll just see where that road takes us.
It's crazy awesome. And what you guys have grown and created over the years is really, really something special. And again, I would love to pick the minds of like the sound people that made all the little beats, because unless I put on like a really high set headphones or have like a crazy studio set, I'm not going to even hear all of it on like a compressed YouTube version.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I do have to shout out just everybody in SFD.
Do it,
honestly.
please.
Thank you guys. You rock. It's my honor and pleasure to work with you every day.
That's like from a fledgling director to an actual established accredited one with all your works behind you. We realize that the visuals are only like half, if not less sometimes, and it's so much more of what you hear.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
Absolutely true.
In fact, I was just saying to I just ran into Neil A. Cree, my composer since Cataclysm, on the floor, on the show floor. And we hugged, and I said, you know, thank you so much again for, you know, because we were celebrating Lost Honor. And he was effusive, thank you, you know. And I said, you know, you're the emotion in my movies, you know. And he's like, you know, well, no, I can't do it without these visuals, you know, so there you go.
It's definitely a handoff. I need to talk to and meet Neil as well, because not only did he score this, he did at the same time, didn't he score the Immortals piece and the Overwatch piece too? He tweeted about all the ones he did.
I think so.
And how, as a composer, do you have such a different understanding of this emotional impact to score?
I don't know. I don't think he's human.
And then,
I think there's something.
You know, that could be it. Those what they see.
He
in
really
their head.
loves Star Wars, so he might not. He might be.
Oh
an alien.
crap!
Yeah,
might be an alien. Yeah, because our mind theaters can see shots and conceptualize our story, but we need those people that see the reverse, that see all the music in the air, and then this, and there's probably a ton. I would love to get. Just the I don't know if you'll post it anywhere or it'll be, but just the scores of like Lost Honor and Old Soldier, and just to listen to it.
There's this amazing instrument.
Because the Warbringers have them.
Yeah.
Oh, the Jaro one. What?
Yeah.
What? It's so good.
I know.
Just the beginning is the best part. I think that's what people want that song more of, like that.
So good.
It's really good. The musicians. I think it's fun when the film. Video nerds give the accolades to the musicians. Musicians give it back to us.
Yeah.
Because we can't do it without them.
It's a symbiotic relationship.
Absolutely true. Yeah. But we definitely got time, Mark. It was awesome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so
very
much.
Absolutely.
It was awesome.
We could sit here for like an hour long more.
Yeah, I think we could.
We're at time. I'm getting looked at over there off camera. You can't see him. Well, because I got to talk to Taryn next. But thank you very much for this. Again, this was part 2 of episode 173. The next part up will be Taryn Gregory, and we're going to talk about another cinematic like this and be total nerds about it, and but in a different way. I mean, because the in-game cinematics,
they're awesome.
They're really good. But I'm going to give this man a small gift off camera, and I will see you all. Yeah, you guys don't know what it is. Get out of here. Go away. Roll the end card, Adam. Here, this is the...
Hey. That was super fun. Thank you, Adam.
I think I was still under an hour, but because I was a little bit setting up.